As you know, the end is near. We are fast approaching the end of our semester, and of course, the mind turns to final projects. I know that some of you have contemplated your final project and already have it underway. Some of you will wait until the last minute to do it. I understand that motivation and that lack of inspiration and all sorts of other things. I have done more papers. If it weren't for the last minute, they would have never been done. And I know that feeling, but I want to encourage you to at least get started on the thinking before the day before it's due. So you'll do better in the long run, trust me. And I've had enough papers where if I just started it even just a few days before I did, it would have been so much better. And I might not have had a heart attack or two or three along the way. Speaking of the end is near kind of stuff. But I wanted to share with you a couple of different things regarding the final projects. In your assignments list and in the modules in your class, there are tabs that say final projects. And those final projects are suggestions and possibilities. They're not the only ones. You can come up with your own. The final projects are not Zooniverse final projects, okay? Zooniverse is something completely different. If you turn in a final project on Zooniverse and think you've done your final project, you're going to be missing a lot of points. So don't do that. I've had a few people who seem to get that confused, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean for anything to be confusing. The final project is a different line item in the grade book. It is a different thing in the assignments. It's a different thing. So make sure you're clear on that. There is a list of different things you could do for your final project, but I want to share with you what some people have done apart from papers or PowerPoints. Now, if we were doing this as a face-to-face class, I would have brought all the things I'm about to show you in so that you could actually see them, but I'm going to do the best I can here. Fortunately, I've taken pictures of them in the past, so let me see if I can get this to share my screen. And it looks like it's sharing the screen. So, okay, let's get rid of that. No, I don't want this to end, okay. Even though the end is near. So let's play this slideshow from start here. Here are some final projects that people have done in the past. Here you can see some moons. This is our moon. This is Phobos and Deimos, the moons of Mars. These are done in styrofoam. This piece has applique for planets. It's very colorful, as you see. This piece up here is on black canvas that was actually put in a nice sort of invisible frame. These are pictures from the Juno project, the latest probe to go to Jupiter. You can see down here people have done plates. This little square or rectangular thing actually has cuneiform pushed into it with an actual carving tool. And the cuneiform symbols on that correspond to the 12 zodiac constellations. This is actually a stitchwork, a needlepoint, and this is a ceramic cup that was done, and it has a comet. You can sort of see two tails if you look very closely on that. Here you can see those things a little more clearly down here, and you can see the two tails on the comet. This is sort of a scene out into the universe. This is a flip, this thing here near the edge is a flip calendar, and each page is a different slice of the moon, and you go through it after 30 days and it starts over again. This again here, Mars, Phobos, and Deimos, not to scale. They actually wrote not to scale on the back of the base here. These are cake pops, actually. And I was told not to eat them because this Deimos here would be the cinnamon challenge. You can see some people have done on canvas constellations. This is, again, a styrofoam earth, and you open it up and it has the different layers inside of the Earth's core and mantle and crust and other kinds of things depicted. These things here, these are made out of clay, and these are three-dimensional constellations. You see on the base here, there's a constellation. Well, different stars are sometimes yellow, sometimes bright blue, sometimes like Betelgeuse, orange or red. So what they've done is they've done different sizes and different stars corresponding. If you were to do Orion, you would have one big blue star where Rigel is, one big orange star where Betelgeuse is, mostly yellow and white smaller stars for the belt. But they're all not at the same distance either, so these lengths correspond to the different distances. Here, going down the table, someone made a sort of a flip book talking about the constellations. This is actually a cookbook that talks about the different planets and stars and nebulae and other things that are out there. One person did, again, thinking of sort of needlepoint and stitching kinds of projects, did one of each of the 12 constellations here. Moon Rocks, this is a book. This was actually designed for college for kids, so it's aimed at middle schoolers, and it's a pop-up book. I wish I'd had this turned on because this is the Constellation Orion made out of Light Bright, and it actually lights up. This can here, they made one for each month, and it has constellations, 3 different constellations around it. And I think this one was for June. You actually put a light bulb up in the middle of the can. They took a screwdriver and poked holes in the can, and you put the light bulb up, and it shines the constellations on the walls. And of course, the constellations change each month around the ecliptic, so there's one for each month. Some people went really, really fancy with their artwork. This is a spiral, barred spiral galaxy, not quite our Milky Way, but another one that's out there. This is another styrofoam Earth. You open it up, and instead of having the innards sort of depicted on the side, it actually has stair-step kinds of things inside. This opens up, and it's a shuttle bay, and it has a miniature Hubble, actually made out of paper. We had sort of planetary dioramas here. This is a huge painting of a nebula. Notice the little figure and stick figure down here. So this is a person who's lost in the universe. And then a few other artworks. This is the depiction of the spectral lines off of the sun. If you take a prism, a triangle, and run the light through it, it will break apart into a rainbow. And if you analyze the lines that are coming off of it, we talked about this in an earlier lecture, so I hope you remember that. But if you look at the different lines there, they correspond to the different elements that we have in the sun. So this is something that was done, and quite nicely done and framed, and they left it behind. I was surprised. All of these things got A's, by the way. And all of these things, people simply, for one reason or another, never came back to pick up. So I very happily added them to my collection. And each semester, I get more and more things. And I'm not showing you nearly everything that I've gotten in the past. These are the Pleiades. And you can see some of the stars are bright blue, some of them are smaller. What they've done is they've put these sort of little diamond-like studs in it, so it actually sparkles in the light. So these are some things that people have done. I've had people do podcasts, I've had people do scripts, I've had people do comic books, I've had people do all sorts of creative things. And I've had people do food projects too. I've had a Neptune cake where you slice it open, and again, it has layers. I had a comet cake made out of ice cream, and it had a cotton candy tail off the back. There are all sorts of things. The one thing that is important to remember, and I will say this again and again and again and again, and if you write to me, I will say it to you again and again and again. When you do a project like this, you need to make sure that you do a one-page write-up of what it is you did and why you did it. And that one-page write-up needs to say what the project is, especially if I'm not sure what it is. It's always helpful to know why you chose that project, how it relates to our class. So it's got to relate to our class, and what I'm supposed to get, or what anyone who's looking at it is supposed to get out of it. So the spectral lines, for example, you would get the composition of the sun. You would get the different elements that are there, the hydrogen lines, the helium lines, the carbon lines, the calcium lines, all of these different things that are present on or in the sun. And how you break the light into the spectrum by using a prism or some other device that breaks things into our spectrographic analysis possibilities there. So you can't just sort of give me a 2-sentence thing. Your grade will not largely depend upon your creativity, although if you are really creative, you're going to get bonus points. But it will depend on how well what you've written matches what you say. So don't think that if you bake some cupcakes and write 2 sentences that you've therefore satisfied the requirement. Even though the cupcakes would be delicious, I'm sure, unless you can deliver them to me, I'm not going to be able to tell that. So that we have a problem this semester with that. Usually there are a couple of different food items, and sometimes some of them are really creative. One person made a mock-up of Stonehenge out of Rice Krispies, and that was rather interesting as well. So we've had some interesting things. So if you can get creative with food, that's fine too. You'll need to take pictures or video and show me what you did. But again, that write-up becomes very important, and the write-up is what you'll turn in. So when you do a final project, you can do a paper, you can do a PowerPoint, or you can do a creative project, but the creative project also has to have a writing something. It doesn't have to be a 5-page anything, but it has to be more than 2 sentences as well. So I'm saying roughly a page. By the time you've answered the questions I delineated, that's pretty much what you're going to be filling up there. So if you have any questions on the final projects, please let me know. And remember, everything is due not this weekend, but the next. But in terms of what's going on in the world, in terms of our semester, the end is near. And the end is coming up rather quickly, especially when we get busy on different kinds of things. So pay attention to the announcement